Welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and this one we're still in this period of lockdown, so I thought it'd be quite fun to do a sort of Q&A. So a few days ago on YouTube, on the community section, I put out a question. What do you want to know from me about cars, collecting cars or whatever? And I would also, as a little carrot, I would explain why I sold the Zonda. It's the question I'm always asked. What did you get rid of the Zonda for? There's a good reason behind it. I'll go into that in a moment. But anyway, I'm very pleased to report that the questions piled in. We had about 600 questions in all. And the ones that sort of filtered to the top were all about, well, what should I be looking for in the classified? What is an investment car, that dreaded word? And what's going to happen to the market? So this particular video, I'm going to concentrate on my golden rules for what to buy, for maximum enjoyment, bang for buck, call it what you will, and just explain some of the cars in here, why they're here. But I'm going to kick off with this Zonda question. Why did I sell the Zonda? Well, it's amazing to look back at when I actually bought the Zonda. It was 2006. And it was the demonstrator car for Zonda UK. So it had been in all sorts of magazines. We'd tested it at Evo. Everyone had tested this car. And there was an opportunity to buy it. And a deal was done. Back then it was in the 200s, thousands, 230,000, somewhere around there. And yeah, I had nearly 5-6 years of enjoying that car. I was looking at the mileage. I bought it at 32,000 kilometres and sold it at 60,000 kilometres. So yeah, 28,000 kilometres I covered in the Zonda. And I'm often asked, well, what on earth made you sell it? Well, at the time, I felt I'd done everything. I'd done several European jaunts in it and things. But there was this nagging thing. It was dominating everything about running a car. It had ridiculously expensive insurance. It was £6,000 or £7,000 a year with a £25,000 excess because it was all carbon fibre. The only people who could repair it was at the factory. Servicing was always meant to trip. It'd always been serviced at the factory. So you were looking, if you couldn't drive it across, or we did it over the winter, there was a £2,500, £3,000 bill just to take the car to have a service. And then the bill on top, £7,000. And it was just starting to really dominate. You know, we used to enjoy holidays and things like that. But this Zonda was consuming cash, just sat in the garage, much as I loved it. And in 2010, I think what the real trigger was this car arrived in the garage, the Countach. And in 2010, I'd started the year and thought, what car do I think is a really good buy at the moment? And I decided around August time, I'm going to get a Countach. They were around the £60,000 mark at the time, 60 to 80,000 depending on condition. And this arrived in September 2010, and it was £67,000 from memory. Insurance, you think, oh God, what's this going to be? It was hundreds. It was like £200 to add it to the policy. What? To service, it was a few £100. I think I did a bit extra work, and it was almost apologising because the bill had gone over £1,000. And the enjoyment level was pretty similar to the Zonda because it was a design icon. It makes glorious noises, and it just had that social presence that people saw it and just smiled and tell you about their poster on the wall, etc. With the Zonda, it was just basically invented for camera phones, and everywhere you went, you had your picture taken, and everybody wanted to know how much it cost and things, and it was a different experience to the Countach that was almost joyous. Now, the Countach is not as good a car as the Zonda. It's compromised, it has a bit rubbish brakes, it doesn't have the performance, but God, it's exciting. And there was something about owning this icon for not quite a tenth of the price of the Zonda that I wasn't getting a tenth of the enjoyment from it. I was getting almost the same. And the silly factor of the running costs actually made me enjoy it more. And I could fiddle with it. I could check it over. I could do things with it. I could decide to improve little bits on it. With the Zonda, everything came with a big bill. I wanted to improve the exhaust on it, and just a few extras, and it came to £110,000. I thought, this is ridiculous. And that was the trouble with the Zonda. What you don't realise until you enter the world of the hypercar is the running costs are off the scale. They're not like running your regular performance car. And weirdly, a Countach is like a regular performance. It's such a simple thing. This is a 1979, 75, 76 designed machine. It's still on carburetors. There's no fuel injection. There's no emission things. There's no servo. There's everything is simple on it. And it starts and it goes, because there's not that much to go wrong with it. So as long as you use it, I just started enjoying that more. So the opportunity came, I thought, you know what, I'm just not enjoying the Zonda as much as I've done everything with it. And I had a word with Tom Hartley Jr., and over Christmas 2011-12, he found a buyer, and that was that. And I sold it. Yes, I made a bit of money on it, but I had a pretty chunky loan on it, and it paid for the Countach, paid for a bit of the kids' education, and everyone was happy. And the guy who bought it actually said, oh, do you mind if you can keep it for me, because I'm in Hong Kong and I want it in the UK. So that's why the sort of Zonda stuck around. I think it was 2017 he then sold it on, and now they're up in the stratosphere. I realise that, but I'm sure I would have sold it before it got, if it got to £1 million, I would have sold it, you know, but I think they're 3 million or something now for one of those. Extraordinary. I so admire Horacio Pagani. The one bit I miss is not having that connection of Horacio and going to the factory, because it was a mega place to be that close to this crazy car. So there you go. That's why the Zonda went. Now let's move on to some of your questions. David Brown, 196 likes this one. Harry, what car really disappointed you? And as in a don't meet your heroes car. Right. Well, it might come as a surprise. The car don't meet your heroes and disappoints me each time I've driven one is the Ferrari F40. Shock. I adore the look of it. It's impossible not to go weak at the knees when you see an F40. But each time I've driven one, I sort of think, well, this is a bit strange. I'm sure it's just been me. The gears are very gappy. Let's get that hand, because I always left-hand drive. So the gears are gappy, so you're in first, you go into second, it's sort of off boost, oh, it lights up, oh, you change into third and it's off boost again. The steering's, it's okay, but the brakes are just not there, and you squeeze harder, and it's riding, it's noisy, and it's just like no other Ferrari. And I find them slightly frustrating cars on the road, and I'm sort of telling myself, oh, it's a wonderful, iconic car, but I've never really got on with the drive experience. It's wonderful in a straight line, and the rush and the turbos and the whooshing, etc. But give me an F50 any day of the week over an F40, or even a Carrera GT. The Carrera GT with that howling V10, slightly cheaper, would get my vote over an F40 all day long, even though I adore the F40 and it's a poster car for me. So that's the one which, for me, don't ever meet your heroes, and it doesn't quite work. Another one, I suppose, is 512 BBI. I can't get on with those. They're awkward driving positions, the whistling fuel injection, lumpy, don't really go. Testarossa is streets ahead, a better car. The one car I sort of wish I'd bought perhaps instead of the Zonda is a 288 GTO, because maybe that was more roadable, it has slightly different gearing, it's not so crazy, it's more usable. I could see myself doing trips in that, while the F40, I just wonder what to do with it and just say, oh, but it's just lovely. So there you go, that's the one car for me is don't meet your heroes, is the F40. Right, I suppose this is my favourite question I got sent. It's by Silver Hair in a Silver Chair. What classic, modern classic, represents the best value for cost, maintenance, etc.? Bang for buck enjoyment. Thanks. And that sort of summarises what everybody seems to ask about what should they buy out of the classifieds. So I'm going to expand on that sort of simple question and go into a bit more detail. Well, the first thing to forget about is investment cars. Market has completely changed. They're out the window. I'm old enough to live through two crazy times, the late 80s, when cars went even nuttier than they did between 2012 and 2016. That's over. Forget about it. Don't think it's an investment. It's probably just limited to those cars that are almost art, and we're into McLaren F1, 250 short wheelbase, Ferrari 250 short wheelbase, etc. Those sort of iconic shapes from the past, they're just about classed as investment cars in my book. Everything else, well, just decide what you want a car for. Is what do you want to do with this car? Why are you after this, whatever it is I'm going to point out in the classifieds? Is it escapism? Is it travel? That's what I love doing with my cars. I like the idea that I can turn out, when I turn the car on, take it out down the drive, it doesn't know if I'm just going locally or we're going down to Spain, France, Italy, wherever. It's just that escapism, the excitement of the journey and all the sights along the trip. Or do you just want to keep it local? You just like the sort of manufacturer, you want to learn more about it. You love, I like the classic Lamborghinis because I just love that era of Ferruccio Lamborghini taking on Ferrari, meeting Valentino Barboni and his on-the-road testing of these crazy Lamborghinis, Bob Wallace racing between Rome and Milan in the Espada. That's another reason for owning them. Is it just the art of the car? The behind is the Fiat 500. It's nothing to, well, it's a little bit of the drive experience, but actually it's just art. I just love that car as a design icon and just a reminder of simpler times. Or are you going to do rallies with it? So there's a load of events out there. I mean, you can do sort of modern cars going to extraordinary roads in Europe, or it might be the sort of rally scene and the books, the Mille Miglia type of event. All the other ones with the Chewit books, hero rallies, etc. And you've just got a bit of, there's a bit of navigation to do as well. Quite understand why you might want to get into those sort of scenes. Or is it just reminiscing? You had a car in your youth and you think, I want another Lotus Elan. I want to revisit that time in my life when I really enjoyed it. I couldn't really afford it. I can afford it now. I'm going to buy one. So decide what you're going to do with the car is the number one thing to do before you look at the classifieds. What are you going to do with it? Then, what are you going to look out for? Well, we're in a funny world, just talking about the market now. Electrification is coming, and in Europe, they're having to meet this 95 grams per kilometre. So the car market is really changing, and going to change even faster over the next 5 years. I've already seen it. In the sports car scene, there is basically, the market has gone. The modern car is a safer car, it's added performance, and it's added usability. But if you're having a car as a toy, a second car to really enjoy, which of those are the ones you've been looking for in your toy car? Safety, from my point of view, I'm into bikes. So like this Esprit, say, from 1987, I think that's a really safe car. It just depends where you are and how important it is. On the family car, I love a modern car, airbags, cross structure, etc. That's a completely different thing. So what I term the white goods car that's just going to do all the running around, the shopping trips, etc., and cart the family around, I want modern, I want safety, everything going for it. So I love a modern car for that. But for the toy cars, then I just want that driver experience. I want that involvement. And unfortunately, the moderns, because of all that structure in them and the electrification, are going to get heavier. They're just moving away from the base of what a true performance driving car needs to offer, and that's lightweight, nimbleness and responsiveness. They're adding more and more power to get over it, But is performance actually what we all want from our cars? I would suggest we're now getting to a point when we've got too much performance, so it becomes a frustrating car to own. That little Lancia Fulvia 1600, I can rag that thing, and yet I'm not illegal. And it's massively enjoyable because it's a great sound, it's great design, and it's one of those cars that bang for buck is off the scale. My little Lan is, but I mean this Lan, I've owned this so long. This is 1993, I think I bought this. Is £4,000. Yes, I've done some work on it, but this is just a lifer. This is staying forever. Value goes out the window. So cheap as chips to run. So just think what you're going to do with the cars. I don't want to go on big tours of these cars. I'd rather choose either the Testarossa or the Countach or the Spree, just that usable, more space, better on long journeys. Then just think on budget. In the UK, we have a strange thing. We have this historic status for some cars. They have to be pre-1980 now, built before 1st of Jan 1980. And then you are zero road tax, no MOT, etc. There's quite a few cars in here fall into that bracket. And that makes it very cheap to run. The next date you've got, is critical date, is March 2001. So everything that isn't historic but was built before March 2001 is around £280 a year to tax or thereabouts. So that's the Countach, Testarossa. Is that it in here? I think it is. And then you get to the moderns. So post 2006, there's not really a good, the Clio, I suppose. No, that's 2005. March 2006 is another critical date here in the UK, because suddenly you're then paying £580 a year for your road tax. And if you're on a budget of £10,000, to be paying £580 a year for car tax hurts a bit. And so some of the choices I'm going to make on the cars to be looking out for are going to be on those cut-off years. So if you're looking for something pre-2006 and you're just in the lower £5,000 to £10,000, two cars I'd pick out. One, the Mini Cooper S, first generation supercharged engine. They're £4,000 in classifieds. They're a hoot. They're an absolute hoot at that price point. You will not be disappointed. They feel a bit more grown up than, say, the Clio 182, which I equally adore, but they're sort of, the Mini has a cult about it, and there's something about that supercharged engine that when we had them at Evo, we enjoyed them massively. So that would be one I'd be looking at as a good buy at the moment, just for a bit of fun. Another one we had at Evo, we had a series of them, the Nissan 350Z or 370Z, and that's one of the casualties of this 2006 increase in tax, because either side of that makes quite a big difference. But they're £6,000 to £8,000. We all enjoyed them. Very simple, front engine, V6, manual, very reliable they seem to be, but just the running cost because of the flipping tax. But everybody I know who had one really enjoyed it. There's another one. Then another one, if you're after a roadster, I like roadsters because I like the travel trips, and I just think they add something. It's like a back to sort of basics. Early cars were always open, if you think about it, and the British roadster is something that defines this nation. So my choice there, TVR Chimera. You can have Griff, even better looking Chimera. This is a second car, a toy car in the garage for those special moments. The simplicity of a Chimera. They're all, the issues with them was there was rust on the outside, outriggers, etc. That's generally all been sorted now because they're very pampered cars generally now. And if I'm looking at one of those, I would have either the 4 litre or the 4.5 litre. Most of the problems you'll read about over forums, etc., were with the 5 litre engine. It was modified by TVR. It had a different crank. They had to go into the internals. If you buy a 4 litre or 4.5 litre Chimera, basically the engine was created from Land Rover, fitted in a car, simple, out it goes out the door. They're £15,000, £16,000. Again, a massively enjoyable car, And you can do the tours with it, you can take it to the shows, you can do anything you want with it. And I promise you, every time you start it up and hear that V8 grumble, you'll love it. And if you really want the best driving dynamics, weight is critical. And everybody at some point in their life needs to drive a Caterham. It hasn't been bettered. There are some wonderful cars like the Aero Atom and things, but a Caterham with the K-Series engine, 16,000 pounds, is the best driving tool out there. We ended up at Evo having to ban them from Car of the Year because they're so flipping good. But is it too compromised for you? It's too compromised for me on the road, but it defines driving pleasure with that precision steering, the lightweight, you're sitting over the rear axle, the sort of the dynamic feel, you will be drifting it before you know it. They're just a wonderful driving device, but perhaps a bit too much for some people, but you've got to drive one in your lifetime. Another one I think is well worth looking at. The classified looks fantastic, bang for buck for me. And that's the Porsche Boxster 2.5, 2.7, I suppose, or perhaps some of the later ones. £6,000 is the sort of starting price for a Boxster. How much car do you want for your money? Very clever look, roof, great car to enjoy, usable, practical, etc. And there's a sort of a ready market for it. And to me, the 996 911 looks a bit weak-kneed, but the Boxster looks better in its skin. If I was buying 911, I'd go for 997. I think it just adds a fair bit more, and they're in the 20s, so they're worth a look. Any flavour, don't think you have to go for GT3. Just enjoy a 997 first, see if you really like the Porsche experience, and once you've lived with it a while, then grade up perhaps to a GT3. And then there's the Project 7. Well, obviously this isn't a bargain car because it's a limited run car, pretty special. But the standard F-Type V8S, the 5-litre version, is wild, utterly wild. And this is what this car is based on. So 2-wheel drive, 500 and something horsepower. Forget the Jaguar badge on the front. The F-Type is nuts with the V8 supercharged engine in this sort of body configuration. They're available around the 30 to 35,000 pound mark, coupe and roadster versions. They are an absolute ball. They have one of the best gearboxes in the world, that ZF 8-speed, highly usable car for trips or adventures, or just basically scaring yourself and surprising people, and that exhaust sound. They're as tough as nails. One of the things I discovered was basically they have the same sign-off on a Jaguar as you have for Land Rover. And so the wheels and things like that and suspension are incredibly strong. You will not bend a wheel on a pothole on a Jaguar F-Type. It's the same sign-off standard as a Range Rover or something like that. So I really rate those. And if you want that sort of car, well, the other one obviously is the Aston Vantage V8, 4.2, 4.7. They're sitting around similar value. 25, 35,000 pounds for a nice 4.7 Aston Vantage V8. Lovely design when they came out, not nearly as wild as this Jaguar, but it's an Aston, and a lot of people aspire to own an Aston Martin and maybe own that and then grade up to a V12. They're going to sit at 70, 80,000, so a fair bit more money, but just try the 4.7 first. That's one thing I must say, in having owned all these cars, the enjoyment you get out of these cars is down to you. Who would have thought I would enjoy this £5,000 Rolls Royce, but taking it to the Arctic made it so special, the journey up there, etc. So that what you do with these cars is critical. Just don't think you're going to buy an Aston F-Type and your life will change. Plan what you're going to do with it. If you own these toys, I think that's one thing we've all learnt in this lockdown period, is we're going to flipping enjoy our cars when we come out of it, because we're really missing it, and it's the escapism that a car offers. The other thing, these are again both historic. I think that's going to be quite important moving forward. Having historic road tax, etc. It's a classification of car. We're going to be reliant on the politicians not doing anything too silly, but because they're sort of a taxation class historic, I can see they're going to get a pass. It's a bit like ultra low emission zone. I can drive I don't have to pay the extra money to take the Rolls Royce in, mad as it may seem, but that's how it is, because they're a historic tax class. Finally, yeah, I'll just explain why. I mean, this P8, this is super limited number car, and it sort of represents for me the end of the current car, because we're going to another period of all modern cars, and it's not friendly to the sports car. So crazy, supercharged, go nuts, carbon fibre thing like this is not unfortunately, what we're going to be able to produce in the, going forward. They're going to be electrified, they're going to be heavier, they're not going to be quite as pure as something as mad as that. Also, I mean, the garage as a whole, the cars in here are toys. Don't let them dominate your life and, you know, pay too much and you can't afford enjoy other things. Get something slightly lower budget than perhaps you were going to spend, and then spend the extra on having the car tripped out to Sicily or something to enjoy that car, to provide the memories. So that's a sort of summary of the top tips. Actually, I'm just going to one more car I want to mention, McLaren. Yes, there's some horror stories out there with McLaren, but a 12C is a very pure, very sexy thing. They're 60, 70,000 pounds. I keep seeing tempting McLaren 570s, etc., at price points I never thought I'd see a McLaren at. They are sort of, they feel Lotus to me. They're superbly done steering, dynamics, seating position, a very special car that I'd be tempted to take a punt on, because I just think they add something. There's Ferrari there, 430, things like that. They're good cars as well. But if you're in that price bracket, I would go and give a test drive and just experience what a McLaren is like on the road. Gosh, I haven't got through very many questions of the 600 odd, but I hope that gives you a sort of roundup of how I see the market. It's going to change when we come out of here. I think we're actually going to love our cars more. It's isolation moving forward. They can offer so much, and the design, etc. I think the passion is going to continue. So I think any of those cars I mentioned will be something that you can enjoy for years to come. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, well, keep watching, keep subscribing, keep touching the notification, etc., because there'll be some more videos coming along very soon.